This video is made possible by the EA Creator Network. So guys, this week I was actually lucky enough to be invited to an online event with a bunch of other Battlefield creators, and we got our hands on with Battlefield 2042. And of course, I was most keen to see what Battlefield Portal was all about, so it's only fair that we're going to take a look at that one first. Is it everything you've been hoping for? Well guys, this is BillyEatWorld again, and let's find out. Alright guys, how you going? Welcome to the video, and to kick off I just want to preface this video with just remember that everything we talk about today is my opinion, and I feel like I really need to say that because, and we're going to talk about this in just a bit, but Battlefield 2042 isn't one experience. Different people are going to get different things out of the three main parts of this game. And look, if I'm brutally honest with where I'm at with this game after playing it this week, I'm really not that interested in all-out warfare or in Hazard Zone pretty much at all. I think the feel and the tone is kind of way off what I would expect a Battlefield game to be, and no matter how much I try, I just can't force myself to get into them. And look, I know a lot of you people are probably going to disagree with that, and you're going to love those two modes, but I'm guessing there's quite a few of you that, like me, were really hanging out to see what Portal was all about, because if you haven't heard about that one yet, Portal is the mode that's bringing back classic experiences from Battlefield 1942, Bad Company 2, and Battlefield 3. But most importantly, what you're going to be able to do in Portal is mix those experiences together, as well as combine them with the vanilla Battlefield 2042 content. And to top it off, it's got a new rules editor as well, which is basically simplified visual scripting that allows you to tweak more gameplay options than we've been able to tweak in a long time. So with that being said, let's dig into what Portal is and what you can actually do with it. And look, just bear in mind that this is really just going to be a top level review here. I'm only about 5 hours deep into it so far, and there's no way to understand it completely in that amount of time. And so look, probably the best way to put it into perspective is to think of Portal almost like modding support that's been heavily restricted by the developers. Now, I know that sounds like a bad thing, but I think part of the reason it has been so restricted is to make it easier for just about anyone to create their own experiences. And look, even games like Arma 3 have watered down visual scripting options as well, but unlike in Arma, in Portal you can't tweak anything outside the editor. You're always limited to only what the devs allow you to do. So the question is then, with these restrictions, what can you actually do with it? And well, in our play session, we played a couple of different pre-made game modes that you guys are seeing on screen now. We played everything from old school classic Battlefield experiences to some meme modes like rocket launcher only, and it's pretty obvious a lot of things are gonna be possible, probably even more than I thought would be when Portal was first announced. The main issue we did find though is that in the build it from scratch modes, the balancing was completely all over the place. For example, the factions have differently balanced weapons, so it looks like mixing factions, although it sounds like a fun idea, isn't probably gonna work. And so I really don't think people are going to use Portal for the meme modes, or at least not in the long run. I think probably the more safe thing for people to do is use it to craft what they see as their perfect Battlefield experience. Now that brings up a really good question, which is, what is the perfect Battlefield experience? And look, the big issue with that is that if you ask 10 people that question, they're all going to have a different answer. And so if you follow that logic, then all of the guys that really like Battlefield 3, they're going to chuck on that tuning pack, and all of the guys that love World War II are going to chuck on the 1942 tuning pack, right? Except that even though DICE have remastered some of the content from those older games, they haven't remastered it all, not by a long shot. There's probably less than a quarter of the content in each of those games in 2042. So if you're hoping to relive, say, Bad Company 2 in Battlefield 2042, it's not going to happen. There's really only 2 maps for Bad Company 2 and only a handful of weapons, and the same thing goes for the other 2 classic games. And look, don't get me wrong, people are going to try to relive those experiences in a one-to-one sense, but in the long run, I think what you're going to find is that the only mods that will survive are going to be the ones that mix in as much content as possible. And so the first thing that I did when I jumped into the Portal editor was try to create a preset for my favorite mode, Rush, that used all maps, all weapons in the Battlefield 3 tuning pack. But, well, as it turns out, that's not possible either. Firstly, some of the modes aren't available on all maps. If you want to play Rush, for example, you're limited to only 6 out of the 13 possible maps. And not just that, but the most important thing is if you select, say, for example, a Battlefield 3 faction for a team, there's no option to give that team all of the other weapons available in the game. You can only access that particular game's handful of guns that have been added to Battlefield 2042. Now, like I said, I've only got 5 hours in this so far and very little time in the editor. So I have been told that it may be possible to force some of those things through the rules editor, but that brings me to another huge limitation, which is that unfortunately the rules editor is only available on the TDM and free-for-all modes. And we played some free-for-all in the event this week, and it was hopeless to say the least. The spawns were all over the shop and you got killed basically almost instantly after you spawned in. Now, with that being said though, the rules editor should allow people to design radically different new game modes, but is that really what people want? Because we've had lots of radically new game modes in Battlefield over the last few years, and yet people always come back to the same 2 or 3 classic modes they've always played. They just want those modes perfected. They don't necessarily want crazy modes. Maybe they might play them once or twice, but really that's going to be about it. With that being said though, that kind of highlights the point that most people aren't going to need the rules editor anyway to get their perfect Battlefield experience. There's still tons of preset options to remove and tweak things the community may not like in the base game and to create stuff like hardcore modes or competitive modes. And I think those subtle things are probably the best thing about Portal, and they're going to be way more impactful than any of the crazy stuff that may actually be possible in the rules editor anyway. But I think you can probably see by now it's pretty obvious that if DICE wants it to reach its full potential, then they've got to open it up a bit more. At the moment, it just kind of feels like a Ferrari driving around in first gear. So to finish up, in a nutshell, look, I think it's pretty obvious Portal is so close and yet so far from being the alternative to all-out warfare I think a lot of people hoped it would be. And as far as we know, we don't have any solid confirmation on whether or not the changes we've talked about in this video that it really needs to get there will ever happen. And look, if I had to guess, I'd say they probably won't, because if Portal was entirely open and it was a viable alternative to all-out warfare, then people probably wouldn't play all-out warfare at all. And maybe that's the way that it should be. That's how Bohemia Interactive treat Arma 3, for example. They give players the framework and then they let them design what they want it to be. Also, to finish up, the last thing I want to cover is a really important point, which I don't think just applies to Portal, but also to the rest of the game as a whole. And that's the point that it feels like Battlefield 2042 is clearly going for quantity over quality in almost every aspect of the game, but especially when it comes to Portal. I think Portal is a really amazing concept, but I think ultimately it's just way too ambitious. They're going to have to keep adding classic content from the 3 older games plus the base game just to meet the community's expectations. And look, we can all hope for the best, and I'm happy to be proved wrong, but especially after what we saw in the last year of Battlefield 5, I just don't know if that's even possible. I hope it is, but I don't think it's going to be. But anyway, guys, that just about wraps up this quick review. So as always, please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And just remember, like I said, this is only a very top level review of Portal, and this is all entirely my opinion. So please, if you think I've got anything wrong or if you've got your own opinions, leave them down in the comments. As always though, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to see any more of these videos. And also don't forget you can find my Twitter and Discord links down there as well if you want to keep in touch. And as always, until next time, see you later and have a good one.